The confetti cannons exploded early during the ceremony. White and gold pieces rained down in the middle of the vows, not after them like carefully planned. My sister's scream cut through the sudden chaos like a knife. She pointed straight at me across the aisle with her bouquet-free hand. Everyone turned in their seats at once. Hundreds of eyes locked onto my completely frozen face. She shouted that I ruined everything on purpose out of pure jealousy. Her voice cracked with theatrical rage that echoed through the decorated venue. The groom tried calming her down, but she pushed his hands away roughly. Guests whispered loudly enough for me to hear every single cruel word. My mother grabbed my arm so hard it left marks. My father's face turned bright red with public embarrassment. They pulled me toward the exit while my sister sobbed dramatically into her expensive bouquet. Bridesmaids rushed to comfort her like she was the victim of violence. Groomsmen glared at me like I committed first-degree murder in front of witnesses. I tried explaining desperately that I touched nothing and did absolutely nothing wrong. Nobody listened to a single word I said. Security appeared from nowhere like they were waiting for this exact moment. They escorted me through the side door while guests filmed everything on their phones. Outside, the spring air felt impossibly cold against my burning face. My hands shook violently and uncontrollably. I stood completely alone in the parking lot, watching through the windows as the ceremony continued without me like I never existed. I sat in my car for 20 long minutes trying to process what just happened. My phone buzzed constantly with incoming messages that made my screen light up repeatedly. Most came from relatives I barely knew and rarely spoke to. They demanded explanations I couldn't possibly provide without sounding defensive. A few accused me outright of jealousy and deliberate sabotage against my own sister. I tried calling my mother 3 separate times, hoping for some support. She declined every single attempt without even a text explanation. My father sent one brief text telling me to go home immediately and stay completely quiet. The wedding livestream link appeared in the family group chat minutes later. Someone recorded the exact moment the cannons misfired and caught everything on video. My sister's accusatory finger pointed directly at the camera before panning to my shocked expression. The comments section filled rapidly with angry reactions and shocked emojis. Cousins tagged me repeatedly, asking publicly what I was thinking doing something so cruel. Aunts wrote long paragraphs about family loyalty and basic respect for important occasions. I wanted desperately to defend myself, but knew anything I said would sound like pathetic excuses. The humiliation pressed down on my chest like heavy concrete blocks. I started the car and drove home in complete and total silence. No music playing, no podcasts running, just the sound of my own breathing and occasional sobs that escaped my throat. 3 weeks before the wedding day, my sister called me at midnight unexpectedly. She needed me to pick up her dress alterations first thing in the morning before work. I took time off work without hesitation or complaint because she was my sister. She thanked me quickly before immediately listing 5 more urgent errands. Flowers needed confirming with the vendor downtown. Gift bags required assembling with specific ribbons and tags. Vendors needed final payments delivered in person with signed receipts. I spent entire weekends running around the city for her without any breaks. She never once asked about my life or my own stress levels. Every single conversation centered exclusively on seating charts and color scheme decisions. When I gently suggested she seemed overwhelmed, she snapped that I couldn't possibly understand her pressure. My parents praised her wedding planning skills constantly at every family dinner. They called her organized and detail-oriented and naturally talented. Nobody noticed or commented on how she treated me like unpaid staff. I convinced myself this was completely normal pre-wedding behavior for stressed brides. Brides got stressed and overwhelmed. Families helped without complaint or expectation of gratitude. I ignored the growing resentment building steadily in my stomach. Looking back now with clearer perspective, I should have seen the pattern forming earlier. She wasn't just stressed about normal wedding logistics. She was positioning me carefully as her scapegoat long before the actual ceremony day arrived. 1 week before the wedding, I noticed something strange in my phone. The bridal party group chat went completely silent for an entire day straight. When I finally checked closely, I realized with shock I was no longer in it at all. My name disappeared from the member list completely without explanation or warning. I texted my sister directly asking what happened and why I was removed. She responded 3 hours later with a casual message that felt deliberately dismissive. She claimed I seemed too busy with work lately to participate meaningfully. She said she didn't want to burden me with constant updates and decisions. The explanation felt thin and unconvincing and deliberately hurtful. I asked if I did something wrong to deserve removal. She replied with a simple no and nothing else at all. My stomach twisted with confusion and deep hurt. I considered pushing harder for real answers but stopped myself. Starting drama right before her wedding seemed selfish and attention-seeking. I told myself she was just overwhelmed and overthinking logistics unnecessarily. Maybe having one less person in the chat made planning easier for her. I pushed down my feelings and focused on being supportive anyway. I should have recognized this as a clear warning sign. She was slowly erasing me from the wedding narrative deliberately. She was making sure I looked distant and disconnected to everyone else. When the accusations came later, nobody would question why I might act out. I woke up to hundreds of notifications covering my phone screen. My sister posted a long, detailed statement on social media overnight while I slept. The post detailed how I sabotaged her wedding out of pure jealousy and resentment. She claimed I always resented her happiness and success in life. She wrote that I deliberately tampered with the confetti cannon system before the ceremony started. She described my supposed motivation as sibling rivalry and bitter envy of her perfect life. The post included multiple photos from the wedding showing the confetti chaos clearly. She tagged me directly in the caption so everyone would see my name. Comments flooded in immediately from people I knew and complete strangers. Extended family members expressed shock and disappointment in me. Friends from high school wrote about how they always knew something was off about my personality. Strangers shared the post calling me toxic and cruel and emotionally damaged. My notifications became a constant stream of hate and harsh judgment. I reported the post for harassment, but knew it wouldn't matter at all. The damage was already spreading rapidly across multiple platforms. Screenshots circulated in group chats I couldn't access or monitor. People debated my character like I was a fictional villain in a movie. I stayed completely silent because any defense would sound desperate and guilty. My sister knew exactly what she was doing with this post. She controlled the narrative completely and absolutely. Walking into work felt like entering enemy territory behind enemy lines. Co-workers who followed my social media had seen everything already. They whispered near the coffee station and stopped talking abruptly when I approached. Someone left a printed screenshot of my sister's post on my desk deliberately. The caption read, "Wedding Wrecker" in red marker across my face. I threw it away immediately, but felt everyone watching my reaction carefully. During a team meeting, my manager made an awkward joke about family drama. Laughter rippled through the room while I forced a painful smile. A colleague I barely knew asked directly if the rumors were true. I said no firmly and walked away before she could press further with questions. Lunch became a solo activity in my car away from everyone. I couldn't face the cafeteria scrutiny anymore without breaking down. My performance suffered noticeably because concentration felt impossible under the pressure. Every email seemed to take twice as long to write properly. Every task felt pointless compared to my crumbling reputation. I considered taking time off but knew that would confirm guilt. The shame followed me everywhere like a dark shadow. Even clients seemed to look at me differently during video calls. My professional life was bleeding into my destroyed personal life. I couldn't escape the consequences of something I never actually did. My parents finally called 4 days after the wedding incident. I answered on the first ring, desperately hoping for support and belief. Instead, my mother launched immediately into a harsh lecture about family reputation. She said my actions embarrassed everyone at the wedding in front of important people. My father interrupted to say I needed to apologize publicly and immediately. I tried explaining desperately that I didn't cause the confetti malfunction at all. My mother cut me off saying witnesses saw me near the control panel. I asked who these witnesses were because I never went near any equipment. My father's voice grew louder, accusing me of making excuses and deflecting blame. He said my sister was devastated and considering therapy for trauma. My mother added that the in-laws were questioning the family's stability and values. They both insisted a public apology would fix everything instantly. I asked if they even considered that I might be telling the truth. Silence stretched across the phone line for several uncomfortable seconds. My mother finally said that my sister had no reason to lie about this. My father agreed immediately, adding that she worked too hard for me to ruin things. I felt my chest tighten with disbelief and pain. My own parents chose her story over my innocence without hesitation or investigation. They ended the call by saying I had 1 week to post an apology. I hung up and cried harder than I had in years. I forced myself to remember the wedding morning in careful detail. The prep room was chaotic with hair and makeup stations everywhere. My sister bounced between stations, checking everyone's progress constantly and anxiously. She seemed unusually tense whenever I was nearby or speaking. At one point, she asked everyone except me to leave briefly. She claimed she needed a private moment to breathe and center herself. I thought it was odd, but respected her request completely. She locked the door behind the last person who left. I heard her moving around inside for several long minutes. When she finally opened the door, she seemed calmer and more focused. I didn't think anything of it at the time because brides needed moments alone. Now the memory took on a sinister and calculated quality. What was she doing in there alone with the door locked? Why did she specifically exclude me from leaving with everyone else? The timing aligned perfectly with when the confetti system must have been tampered with. My stomach dropped as the pieces started connecting clearly. She wasn't having a private moment to calm nerves. She was setting the stage deliberately for my public humiliation. The locked door wasn't about finding peace. It was about creating opportunity without witnesses. Screenshots of my sister's accusatory post appeared in group chats I didn't know existed. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years sent me a harsh message. She called me a disgrace to the family name and reputation. She said I should be deeply ashamed for being so selfish and cruel. Another relative posted in the extended family chat asking how I could live with myself. Aunts and uncles chimed in with disappointment and long lectures about respect. Nobody asked for my side of the story or version of events. Nobody questioned if my sister might be wrong or lying. The court of public opinion had already convicted me completely. I stayed silent because anything I said would fuel more anger. Speaking up without proof would make me look defensive and guilty. My silence was mistaken for shame and admission of guilt. The injustice burned in my throat every time I opened my phone. I wanted to scream the truth but had no evidence to support it. My word against hers meant absolutely nothing when she controlled the narrative. I stopped checking social media entirely for my own sanity. I muted every family group chat permanently. I deleted apps from my phone to avoid temptation. The isolation felt safer than constant attack and judgment. An email appeared in my inbox 3 days after the wedding. The subject line read "Important wedding footage" in bold letters. I recognized the sender immediately as the photographer my sister hired. My hands trembled opening the message with anticipation. He wrote that he needed to discuss something urgent about the prep room footage. He apologized for the vague message, but insisted we meet in person. He provided his studio address and suggested meeting the next afternoon. I read the email 5 times trying to understand the implication. What footage existed? Why did it matter now? Why contact me instead of my sister directly? My mind raced through possibilities both hopeful and terrifying. Maybe he witnessed something that proved my innocence completely. Maybe he had evidence showing I wasn't near the cannons. Or maybe this was another trap designed to humiliate me further publicly. I replied agreeing to meet despite my growing anxiety. Sleep didn't come that night at all. I stared at the ceiling imagining every possible scenario and outcome. By morning I felt exhausted but determined. Whatever this footage showed, I needed to see it desperately. The truth had to exist somewhere in the world. Maybe the photographer found it captured on camera. The photography studio sat in a quiet commercial district. I arrived 15 minutes early and waited nervously in my car. My stomach churned with nervous anticipation and fear. At exactly 2 o'clock, I walked inside. The photographer greeted me warmly, but with obvious hesitation in his voice. He led me to a private editing room filled with monitors and hard drives. He offered coffee, which I declined because my hands were already shaking. He sat down and pulled up a video file without speaking first. His expression was serious and slightly uncomfortable. He explained that he always kept cameras rolling during prep phases. Candid moments made the best wedding albums according to his professional experience. He hesitated before continuing with his explanation. He said he didn't realize the significance of certain footage until hearing about the accusations. He asked if I was comfortable viewing something potentially upsetting. I nodded silently, unable to form words properly. He clicked play, and the screen filled with the prep room from the wedding morning. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear the audio. Whatever I was about to see would change everything completely. I braced myself for truth I desperately needed to survive this nightmare. The footage showed the prep room completely empty except for my sister alone. The timestamp read 30 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to start. She walked purposefully to a corner where equipment was stored. Her movements were quick and purposeful, not stressed or frantic at all. She picked up a small remote control device carefully. She examined it closely, pressing buttons and watching responses outside the window. The confetti cannons outside responded to her test presses. She laughed quietly to herself, barely audible through the microphone. She whispered something that sounded like, "This will make everyone see what I deal with." She set the remote down carefully and adjusted its position precisely. She checked her appearance in a full-length mirror and smiled. The smile wasn't nervous or excited about the wedding. It was calculated and cold and satisfied. She left the room looking completely satisfied with herself. The video ended and heavy silence filled the studio. My hands covered my mouth in complete shock. The photographer watched my reaction carefully and sympathetically. Evidence of her deliberate sabotage played right in front of me. She planned everything from the very beginning. She framed me intentionally and publicly for something she did herself. The betrayal cut deeper than any previous hurt I'd experienced. My own sister destroyed my reputation with premeditated cruelty and calculation. I couldn't speak for several long minutes. The truth was somehow worse than I imagined possible. The photographer shifted uncomfortably in his chair beside me. He explained that he didn't watch all prep room footage immediately after weddings. He typically reviewed ceremony and reception content first for the couple to enjoy. When he finally went through everything systematically, this clip stood out dramatically. He heard about the accusations through mutual connections on social media. He put the pieces together, but felt uncertain about getting involved in family drama. Family drama wasn't his business as a professional vendor. He worried about backlash and negative reviews affecting his livelihood permanently. He also worried about legal implications of sharing client footage without permission, but his conscience wouldn't let him stay silent when someone was being falsely accused. He asked what I wanted to do with the information he provided. I assured him I wasn't trying to start a family war unnecessarily. I just wanted to clear my name and restore my reputation fairly. He nodded with visible relief crossing his face. He offered to send me a copy of the footage for my personal use. He made me promise not to mention where I got it initially. I agreed without hesitation because I understood his position. He transferred the file to my external drive within minutes. I thanked him repeatedly while tears streamed down my face. He wished me luck with genuine sympathy in his voice. I sat in my car outside the studio for an hour afterward. The external drive felt heavy in my lap like a weapon. Proof of my sister's betrayal existed in digital form now. The reality of her calculated cruelty finally hit me completely. I broke down sobbing harder than I ever had before in my life. All the humiliation, isolation, and pain poured out at once. My whole body shook with the force of emotions I'd been suppressing. She didn't just hurt me accidentally or through misunderstanding. She planned and executed a deliberate attack on my character publicly. She weaponized family loyalty and social pressure against me specifically. She destroyed my reputation for reasons I still couldn't fully comprehend. Was it jealousy of something I had, control over the family narrative, some twisted need for attention and sympathy from everyone? None of the possible explanations made sense logically. We were sisters who grew up together. We shared memories and history and childhood experiences. How could she do something so calculated and heartless to me? The footage proved her guilt beyond any reasonable doubt, but it also proved something darker about who she really was inside. I couldn't reconcile the sister I thought I knew with the person in that video. The grief felt overwhelming and suffocating and crushing. My parents invited me over for dinner 2 days later. I drove to their house with the external drive in my bag. I told myself I would show them the footage and finally be vindicated. They greeted me at the door with serious expressions on their faces. We sat in the living room before eating dinner. My father started by saying they called this meeting to resolve the situation permanently. My mother added that my continued silence looked guilty to everyone. They said my sister was struggling emotionally because of my supposed actions. They insisted I needed to issue a public apology immediately tonight. I opened my mouth to mention the footage but stopped suddenly. Something in their tone felt predetermined and closed. They weren't asking for my truth or my side. They were demanding compliance with their decision. I realized showing them the video wouldn't change their minds tonight. They had already decided what they believed completely. Presenting evidence in this hostile environment would lead to dismissal and excuses. They might claim the video was edited or taken out of context somehow. They might defend my sister anyway because admitting her guilt meant admitting their failure. I closed my bag and stood up abruptly. I told them I wouldn't apologize for something I didn't do. They shouted after me as I walked out their front door. I left feeling smaller than ever before in my entire life. I stopped responding to everyone completely and entirely. I muted all family group chats permanently on every platform. I declined invitations to gatherings and holidays without explanation. I focused entirely on work and personal survival day by day. The silence felt protective even though it also felt deeply lonely. Colleagues stopped asking about my personal life after getting one-word answers repeatedly. Friends from outside the family checked on me occasionally with concern. I appreciated their concern but couldn't explain everything yet to them. Talking about the situation made it feel more real and overwhelming. I needed distance to process the betrayal properly and carefully. My apartment became my sanctuary away from judgment and accusations. I spent evenings researching and planning my next steps carefully and strategically. I wouldn't act impulsively or emotionally like she expected. I would wait until I had complete control over the narrative. My sister controlled the first version of events successfully. I would control the truth when the time was right. Patience became my greatest weapon in this situation. The footage sat on my computer desktop like a loaded gun. I wasn't ready to fire it yet at anyone. I needed the perfect moment when maximum people would witness the truth. Revenge didn't require confrontation or drama. It required undeniable proof delivered strategically at the right moment. A message appeared from a distant cousin I barely remembered meeting. Her name was Victoria, and we'd only met at occasional family reunions. She wrote that something about the wedding situation never felt right to her. She attended the ceremony and witnessed my sister's reaction firsthand in person. She noticed how theatrical and performed the whole scene felt. My sister seemed too prepared with her accusations and words. The timing of everything felt too convenient and coordinated perfectly. Victoria admitted she didn't know me well enough to judge my character fairly, but she knew manipulation when she saw it happening. She dealt with similar family dynamics in her own complicated life. She wanted me to know that at least one person questioned the official story. Her message brought tears to my eyes instantly. Validation from even one person felt like oxygen after drowning underwater. I thanked her for reaching out and for trusting her instincts. I didn't mention the footage yet because I wasn't ready to reveal it, but knowing someone doubted my sister's narrative gave me strength and hope. Maybe others had similar suspicions they weren't voicing publicly yet. Maybe the truth would be easier to accept when I finally revealed it. Victoria's message reminded me that not everyone blindly followed mob mentality. Some people thought critically and questioned convenient narratives that seemed too perfect. I spent days organizing the footage and preparing my response carefully. I created a simple video compilation with timestamps clearly visible throughout. I wrote a calm, factual explanation of what the footage showed objectively. No insults directed at anyone, no emotional outbursts or dramatics, no dramatic accusations or name-calling, just the truth presented with clear evidence. I explained that I was accused of sabotaging my sister's wedding. I stated that I denied the accusations from the very beginning. I noted that nobody listened to my side of the story at all. Then I introduced the photographer's prep room footage calmly. I let the video speak for itself without excessive commentary. I pointed out key moments, my sister testing the confetti remote deliberately, her whispered statement clearly audible, her satisfied expression afterward. I concluded by saying I hoped this footage provided clarity and closure for everyone. I reviewed the post 50 times before finalizing it. Every word needed to be precise and completely unassailable. I couldn't give my sister any ammunition to claim victimhood again. The tone had to remain factual and unemotional throughout. Anger would make me look vindictive and bitter. Sadness would make me look weak and pathetic. Simple truth was the most powerful weapon available. I scheduled the post to go live at noon on Sunday. Maximum family members would be online and available to see it. The truth was about to dismantle everything she built. I pressed publish and watched the post go live. My hands trembled as the screen refreshed repeatedly. Within 2 minutes the first comment appeared below, then 5 more comments, then 20 more. The comments came faster than I could read them all. Shock expressed repeatedly, disbelief from people who believed her, apologies from those who attacked me. Anger directed at my sister instead of me now. People tagged her repeatedly demanding explanations immediately. Others shared the post to their own pages and profiles. The video view count climbed rapidly into the hundreds. Extended family members who attacked me before now wrote about being deceived. Friends apologized for believing lies without questioning them first. Even strangers commented about my sister's calculated cruelty clearly visible. The narrative shifted completely within the first hour. My phone buzzed constantly with incoming messages flooding my inbox. Some people apologized directly and personally. Others asked why I waited so long to share the truth. A few accused me of creating more unnecessary drama, but the overwhelming majority finally believed my innocence completely. The vindication felt surreal after weeks of painful isolation. I didn't respond to anyone yet deliberately. I let the footage continue speaking for itself clearly. The truth required no defense or elaboration from me. My sister's actions were exposed permanently for everyone. Her credibility was destroyed by her own recorded behavior. The family group chat exploded with frantic activity. My phone overheated from constant notifications pouring in. Relatives demanded my sister explain the footage immediately. They asked why she lied so publicly and cruelly to everyone. They questioned her motives and her mental state seriously. My parents called me 17 times in 2 hours straight. I ignored every single attempt deliberately. Several aunts and uncles sent private apologies to me. They admitted they judged me too quickly, without real evidence. Victoria sent a message saying she knew something was wrong. Others who stayed silent before now voiced their support publicly. My sister remained completely silent online everywhere. She didn't comment, didn't share, didn't defend herself at all. Her absence spoke volumes about her obvious guilt. Her husband posted a brief statement saying they were dealing with private matters. The wedding photographer commented on my post confirming the footage's authenticity. He said he felt obligated to provide evidence of the truth. His comment added legitimacy that silenced remaining doubters completely. The family group chat devolved into arguments between defenders and accusers. Some relatives tried protecting my sister out of misplaced loyalty. Others called her manipulative and toxic and dangerous. I watched the chaos unfold from a safe distance. I said nothing and let natural consequences play out. For once, I wasn't the target of family rage. My sister finally posted a shaky video response online. Her eyes were red and her voice wavered dramatically throughout. She claimed the footage showed a misunderstanding of innocent actions. She said she was testing the canons to make sure they worked properly. She insisted she never intended to frame anyone deliberately. She suggested the photographer misinterpreted innocent actions maliciously. She asked for privacy during this difficult time for her marriage. The comments section filled with people calling out her obvious lies. The footage was too clear and her whispered statement too damning. People pointed out her calculated smile and satisfied expression afterward. Her attempt at damage control only made her look more guilty. Friends started distancing themselves publicly by unliking her posts. Some unfollowed her entirely and publicly. The in-laws reportedly confronted her about the scandal harshly. Word spread through mutual connections that her new marriage was experiencing immediate tension. People stopped defending her as the evidence became undeniable. Her reputation crumbled while mine was slowly rebuilding. I felt no joy watching her fall apart publicly, just a quiet sense of justice being served naturally. She destroyed my reputation deliberately and publicly. Now she faced natural consequences of her own actions. My parents arrived at my apartment unannounced one evening. They looked exhausted and shaken by recent events. I let them inside without speaking first. We sat in tense silence for several long minutes. My mother finally spoke first quietly. She admitted they didn't know what to believe initially. She said watching the footage changed everything for them completely. My father added that they were wrong to dismiss my innocence. They apologized, but their words felt hollow and rehearsed. I asked why they believed her so easily without questioning. They claimed they trusted her because she seemed so genuinely upset. I pointed out that I seemed genuinely devastated too at the time. They had no good answer to that simple question. My mother cried and said they failed me as parents. My father looked at the floor, unable to meet my eyes. I accepted their apology because they were still my parents, but I couldn't forget how quickly they abandoned me. Trust once broken doesn't heal with simple words alone. They asked what I needed from them moving forward. I said I needed time and space to process everything. They nodded and left quietly without pushing further. I closed the door feeling both validated and heartbroken. Their apology couldn't erase the weeks of isolation and pain. My sister's life unraveled quickly after the truth emerged publicly. Her in-laws questioned whether she was trustworthy enough for their family. Several of her friends cut contact completely and permanently. Word spread through social circles about her manipulative behavior. People started re-evaluating past interactions with her critically. They remembered times she twisted stories or played victim unnecessarily. The pattern became obvious once people looked critically. Her new husband struggled with the public embarrassment and family pressure. Their honeymoon was reportedly tense and filled with arguments. She lost her job after the scandal reached her workplace. Colleagues didn't trust someone capable of such calculated deception. Her social media presence disappeared entirely overnight. She deleted accounts or made them private. The wedding album she bragged about never got completed. The photographer refused to finish the project entirely. She tried reaching out to me multiple times desperately. I blocked her on every platform available. I had nothing to say to someone who tried destroying me deliberately. Natural consequences were punishment enough for her. I didn't need to add my own revenge. Months passed without any contact with my sister whatsoever. I rebuilt my reputation through consistent honesty and professionalism. Co-workers forgot about the drama entirely. Extended family stopped mentioning the incident constantly. Life returned to a new version of normal. I attended a family gathering for the first time. People treated me with extra kindness like I was fragile. I appreciated the effort but wanted to move past being defined by victimhood. My parents tried rebuilding our relationship slowly and carefully. We had dinner occasionally, but the dynamic was forever changed. Trust doesn't return overnight or easily. Victoria and I became genuine friends beyond family connections. We bonded over shared experiences with family manipulation. I learned to set boundaries and prioritize my own well-being. I stopped tolerating disrespect for the sake of family peace. Some relatives still defended my sister quietly behind closed doors. I didn't waste energy trying to change their minds. I focused on the people who showed up when I needed them. I kept the footage archived safely but never watched it again. The truth was documented permanently and publicly. That was enough for me. I moved forward without bitterness or hatred. My sister's actions reflected her character, not mine. A year after the wedding, I felt finally at peace with everything. People occasionally asked about the incident with cautious curiosity. I gave brief factual answers without emotional detail or drama. The story became a cautionary tale about jumping to conclusions quickly. My sister remained distant and isolated from most family. Her marriage survived but was reportedly strained and difficult. She never apologized directly to me personally. I didn't need her apology anymore honestly. The truth spoke louder than any words she could offer. I focused on building a life surrounded by trustworthy people. I learned that family loyalty shouldn't mean blind acceptance of abuse. Real love requires accountability and truth always. My relationship with my parents improved slowly over time. They worked to regain my trust through consistent actions. Some family members never apologized, but I made peace with that. Not everyone has the courage to admit when they're wrong. I stopped waiting for validation from people who refused to see clearly. The photographer became an unlikely hero in my story. His willingness to share evidence saved my reputation completely. I remained grateful for his conscience and courage throughout. My life moved forward stronger and clearer than before. I survived my sister's betrayal and emerged knowing exactly who I was. The truth set everything free eventually and permanently.